Well, good evening, everybody, and Hag Sameach. Welcome to Beth-El Tzedek's adult Megillah reading and Purim celebration. Even though Purim is a day of festivities and of merrymaking, I think that this year's Purim requires that we begin by taking note of the sad milestone which we reached this past week. Over 500,000 victims in our country, over 500,000 people who have died of the coronavirus, 2.5 million worldwide. So this evening, as we toast to Esther and to Mordecai, who were responsible for saving our people 2,500 years ago in Persia, let us honor the preciousness of all lives by dedicating ourselves to the urgent requirements of bringing health and healing, harmony, friendship, and peace to the physical and social challenges of our time. Let's begin with a brief pause of silence in memory of those who have died. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו amen. May God, the source of peace, grant healing, comfort, and peace to us, to all Israel, to all the world. And we say amen. So before we turn to the chanting of the Megillah, which will introduce our program this evening, I think that a few explanatory notes are in order. The book of Esther, or the Megillah, which will be chanted tonight, is one of 5 Megillot, all of which are found in the 3rd section of the Hebrew Bible, the section known as the writings, or the Ketuvim. And they are read at different holidays or observances. Each one of them is called a Megillah. On Passover, we read Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim. On Shavuot, Ruth. On Tisha B'Av, Heicha, or Lamentations. On Sukkot, Ecclesiastes, Kohelet. And on Purim, we read the Megillah of Esther. The events that are narrated in the book of Esther, and to which we will be treated tonight in unique, updated form, become the backdrop of the Purim celebration. They take place in Persia somewhere in the 5th or 6th century before the Common Era. The book is not intended to be a historical documentary. It is rather a novella, a semi-fictional account that captures the experience of the Jews in Persia and much of the diaspora following the destruction of the First Temple. As my professor Robert Gordis might have said, this book contains a nucleus of fact and a protoplasm of imagination. The story raises what is perhaps the first accusation of dual loyalty against Jews, that they're not to be trusted as worthy, loyal citizens. It speaks of an established Jewish community for whom times and circumstances take a precarious turn. The book is about chance, about the unexpected, and about things going topsy-turvy. The book reads as a spoofy fiction regarding the ongoing tug-of-war between good and evil, chance and purpose. Here are some interesting features of the book of Esther. It is the only book in the Bible that does not mention the name of God. The word kosher or kasher occurs only once in the Bible, in the book of Esther, chapter 8, verse 5. All the letters of the Hebrew alphabet occur in one verse in the book of Esther, 3:13. The longest verse in the Bible occurs in the book of Esther, chapter 8, verse 9. It contains 43 words. And the sages teach us that the gematria, the numerical value for Baruch Mordecai, blessed is Mordecai, and Arur Haman, cursed be Haman, is equal in both cases. I'm sure you're now eager to listen to the Megillah, to meet its characters, make some noise. So we are ready to have some Purim fun. I'd like to thank Rabbi Jenny, George Kelly, Cantor Melissa for coordinating the skit that we will be enjoying tonight. I want to thank Jackie and Shari for keeping us connected, and our lay leaders and participants who will be introduced in the course of the story. I am ready to put on my crown royal as we begin the story of Purim. Cantor?
I am here. Okay, we are going to read Megillah, and I am going to share my screen. Hold on, I'm coming. This is not fun. This is just what we have to do. Can everyone see it? Okay, great. Okay, hold on. Okay, can everyone see what I'm looking at? Excellent. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Okay, here we go. Blessings first. And you know what to do when we gotta say you know who. So if you've got a grogger nearby, get it ready. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al mikvah Megillah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim l'avotenu bayamim hahem b'zman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. ויהי בימי אחשוורוש, הוא אחשוורוש, המוליך מהודו ועד כוש, 27 מהמדינה, בימים ההם, כשבט המלך אחשוורוש, על כיסא מלכותו, אשר בשושן Habira. In the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a great banquet for all in his service. He was foolish and very rich and spent most of his time in the palace giving such parties. Royal wine was served in abundance as befits a king, and the royal rule for the drinking was no restrictions, for the king had given orders to every palace steward to comply with each man's wishes. One day, King Achashverosh summoned for his queen, Lehavi et Vashti, Hamalka, לפני המלך בכתר מלכות, להראות העמים והשרים את יפיה, כי טובת מראה היא. ותמאן המלכה ושתי לבוא בדבר המלך אשר ביד הסריסים, ויקצוף המלך מאוד בחמותו ברבו, So the king sent Vashti away from his kingdom forever. Sometime later, when the king finally calmed down, he held a contest across the land to choose a new queen. He called for all the young maidens to appear before him. Venaton Tamruken. Yep, cosmetics, makeup. Vanara asher tita beinei hamelech timloch tachat Vashti vayitav hadavar beinei hamelech vayaskein. Shehudi haya beshushan habira ushmo Mordechai ben Yair ben Shimi ben Kishi Shemini lo higida Esther et amma v'et molata ki Mordechai Tziva aleha asher lo tagid. Oh no, hold on. Sorry. Esther earned a special place in the king's heart and favored her above all. And Esther won the admiration of all who saw her. Ve'yehav hamelech et Esther bikol hanashim. Vatisachin v'chesed lefanav mikol habetulot vayasem keter malchut berosha vayamlicha tachat Vashti. One day, Mordechai came to visit Esther, as he often did, and overheard two of the palace guards plotting to kill the king. Mordechai told Esther, and Esther told the king. The king's officers arrested the two men, and the story of how Mordechai saved the king's life was written down in the royal diary. Achar hadvarim ha'ele gidal hamelech Achashverosh et Haman ben Hamdata Hagagi vayanasehu vayasem et kiso me'al Kol hasarim asher ito. All the king's courtiers in the palace gate knelt and bowed low to Haman. For such was the king's order concerning him, but Mordechai would not kneel or bow low. When asked why he would disobey the king's order, Mordechai explained to them that he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordechai would not kneel or bow low to him, Haman was filled with rage because he was a wicked, wicked man. So Haman plotted to do away with all the Jews, Mordechai's people, throughout the kingdom of Achashverosh. Vayomer Haman Lamelech Achashverosh Yeshno am echad mipuzar forad ve'ein hamim bechol medinot malchutecha vedatehem shenot mikolam ve'etate hamelech einam mosim ve'lamelech eina shoveh lehanachem. Pay close attention to this section. You may need it later. The king removed his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman. the foe of the Jews. And the king said, the money and the people are yours to do with as you see fit. So lots, or Purim, were drawn to determine the fateful day that the destruction of the Jews would occur. The 13th of Adar was chosen. Mordecai yada et kol asher na'asa vayikra Mordecai et begadav vayilbash sak ve'efer vayetze betoch ha'ir vayisak gedola umara. Mordecai sent a message to Queen Esther saying this: if you keep silent in this crisis, relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from another quarter, while you and your father's house will perish. And who knows, perhaps you have attained to royal position for just such a crisis. Vatomer Esther lehashiv el Mordecai. Go assemble all the Jews who live in Shushan and fast on my behalf. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maidens will observe the same fast. Then I shall go to the king, though it is against the law. And if I am to perish, I shall perish. Vayavor Mordecai. Vayas kechol asher tzivta alav Esther. On the 3rd day, Esther put on royal apparel and appeared before the king. As soon as the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, she won his favor. The king extended to Esther the golden scepter which he had in his hand, and Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. Vayomer la hamelech malach Esther hamalkah Uma bakeshatech ad chatzi hamalchut vayinaten alach. Vatomer Esther im al hamelech tov vayavo hamelech vehaman hayom el hamisha asher asiti lo. The king commanded, tell Haman to hurry and do Esther's bidding. So the king and Haman came to the feast that Esther had prepared. The next day, Haman went out happy and lighthearted, but when Haman saw Mordecai in the palace gate, and Mordecai did not rise or even stir on his account, Haman was filled with rage at him. Haman's wife, Zeresh, suggested a stake be put up and asked the king to have Mordecai impaled upon it in the morning. Haman thought this was a great idea, so they made the stake. בלילה ההוא נדדה שנת המלך ויאמר להביא את ספר הזיכרונות דברי הימים ויהיו נקראים לפני המלך. He heard how Mordecai, the Jew, had saved his life. He asked if Mordecai had been rewarded for his bravery, and he was told that he had not. Just then, Haman had come to see the king. Achashverosh asked Haman how he would reward such a brave and good man. Haman, thinking that the king wished to honor him, suggested that the person be dressed in the king's royal robes and crowned and led on the king's horse through the streets of Shushan. Vayomer HaMelech leHaman Maher kach et halavush ve'et hasus ka'asher dibarta ve'asechen leMordechai hayehudi hayoshev b'sha'ar hamelech al tapel davar mikol asher dibarti. Vayikach Haman et halvush v'et hasus yalvesh et Mordechai vayarkivehu birchov ha'ir vayikra halefanav kacha ye'aseh la'ish asher hamelech hafetz bikaro. That night the king and Haman came to Esther's banquet. The king saw that Esther looked very unhappy. Because he loved her, he promised her that she could have anything she wanted from his whole kingdom. Vatan Esther Hamalka Vatomar Imatzati Chein Be'necha Hamelech Ve'im al Hamelech Tov Tinatin li nafshi bish'elati ve'ami bevakashati ki inim karno ani ve'ami mit harog ul abed ve'ilu lava nima hecharashti ki ein hatzahar shoveh b'nezek hamelech. Vayomer hamelech Achashverosh vayomer le'Esther hamelcha mihu zeh ve'ezehu asher mal'o libo la'asot kein. Vatomer Esther ish tzahar ve'oyev Haman hara hazeh ve'Haman nivat milifnei hamelech ve'hamalka. Then one of the king's attendants told Achashverosh of the stake standing at Haman's house intended for Mordecai. Impale him on it, the king ordered, so they impaled Haman on the stake which he had put up for Mordecai, and the king's fury abated. Mordecai yatsa milifnei hamelech v'lavush malchut techelet bachur ve'atet et zahav gedolah v'tachrich butz ve'argaman ve'ha'ir Shushan sola v'samecha. LaYehudim hayta ora v'simcha v'sason v'ikar. And so on the 13th day of the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, when the king's command and decree were to be executed, the very day on which the enemies of the Jews had expected to get them in their power, the opposite happened. Beit Vashana Tatavon Asma Tapurda Tata Vidata Barash Harisai the 10 sons of Haman. Namda Tatzore Yehudim Haragu Uva Bizalo Shalachu Et Yadam. That was on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and they rested on the 14th day and made it a holiday. And Mordecai made a decree of the king that this day be marked from year to year as a day the Jews enjoyed relief from their foes, and the same month, which had been transformed for them from one of grief and mourning to one of festive joy. They were to observe them as days of feasting and merrymaking, and as an occasion for sending gifts to one another and presents to the poor. These days are recalled and observed in every generation by every family, every province, and every city. And these days of Purim shall never cease among the Jews, and the memory of them shall never perish among their descendants. Uma amar Esther, ki am divrei hapurim haele, v'nichtav b'sefer. Ki Mordechai Yehudi, Mishneh lemelech Achashverosh, v'gadol haYehudim, v'ratzui lerov echav, doreshov le'amo, v'dover shalom lechol zaharo. La Yehudim haita ora v'simcha v'sason vayikar. The Jews enjoyed light and gladness, happiness and honor. Umishloach manot ish l're'ehu umatanot le'evyonim. And by sending gifts to one another and gifts to the poor, our sages teach it is better to increase the gifts to the poor than to make for ourselves a big meal. For there is no greater joy than to gladden the hearts of the poor, the orphans, the widows, and the strangers. Blessings. Hold on. Wait, almost over. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, melech haolam, harav et rivenu, v'hadan tinenu, v'hanifra lanu mikol tzarenu, Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaMoshiach. Everybody say Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Now to our evening's program. Shalom and welcome to Access Shushan. I am your host, Shoshana Habira. And tonight, following that harrowing tale read for us by our cantor, all of Shushan is reeling from the death of that once trusted advisor of the king of Haman. As we just heard, he was entangled in drama of kings and queens and death threats. His plot to wipe out the entire Jewish people was thwarted, and in a twist of fate, we just heard, he was hung on the gallows he'd built for Queen Esther, for her cousin Mordecai and their people. We do now know that he was wicked, and I absolutely encourage a sip of whatever beverage you have nearby each time you hear his name, so as to blot out his name from your memory. And yet, we still have to wonder, who did this? Who was behind the mask at that gallows? Why did he or she so desire to be the one to see Haman hanged? I hope you'll join me this evening for a special episode as we observe a renowned detective, Inspector Sasso of Shushan, on his quest to find out who. Before we meet our suspects and our amazing detective, I will turn it over to my good friend Demeritus, who will give us some more background on our task for this evening. Once I have it set up correctly. I thought I did.
Greetings, Shalom Aleichem, and Happy Purim. I am Demeritus, the exiled Europonted king of Sparta. After King Ahasuerus attacked Athens in hopes of expanding the Persian kingdom even further to the west, he offered me shelter to take refuge here in Persia. I appreciate his hospitality, but lately, life in this kingdom has been increasingly chaotic and unstable. Experience has taught me to trust no one. Everyone has an angle, everyone has a motive. That goes for royals like me, just as it does for the prosperous and the poor, the powerful and the pitied among us. No one is protected from fate. Yes, Haman was hung on the gallows he built for Mordecai, a fitting end suggested by Harbonah, the eunuch. The king gave the order and the people of Shushan witnessed it, but I can't help but wonder, who was the masked hangman that dispatched that wicked, wicked man? As the crowds dispersed, the speculations began. Was it Queen Esther herself seeking revenge? Was it the king's butler who owed Haman for gambling debts? Was it Haman's 11th son, estranged from the family for years? Herodotus, the great historian, recorded the motto of Persian residents of the Pontus. Youths from their 5th year to their 20th year are instructed in 3 things: to ride a horse, to draw a bow, and to speak the truth. I admire this greatly. The centrality of truth in Persian culture now demands that we reveal the truth behind the hangman's mask. So join me in conducting a thorough investigation of all the suspects, including you. Let's begin with introductions, shall we? This will give us a chance to get to know one another and make note of first impressions.
Have a little bit of an intro now that we have some grounding. I'm going to invite each of our suspects to share a little of who they are, give them an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then I will introduce our renowned detective who will help us get to the bottom of this story. I would first like to ask for Harbonah, one of the king's eunuch, to introduce himself. I'm going to ask Harbonah to unmute before he tries to introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. I am Harbonah, one of the 7 eunuchs who serves in King Ahasuerus' court. I was the one who was sent by the king to bring Queen Vashti to the drinking party, if that's what you want to call it. Oh, I felt like a ping pong ball bouncing between the 2 of them. Each message I had to deliver was hotter than the one before it. Ow, ow! I hope tonight's party will be a little bit more civilized.
Interesting. Harbonah, back and forth a lot, but also seemed like cushy job, lots of messages. Who knows? Next, I would like the king himself, King Ahasuerus, to introduce himself.
Do I need an introduction? Obviously, you know, I am your king, King Ahasuerus, the king of Persia, and its 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. I'm also very famous for hosting lavish parties. Did you hear about that recent 180-day feast? Oh boy, I'm still recovering from that one. You know, whiskey and wine and Twitter and Fox News are so much more interesting than governing. I may have let a few things slip from time to time. but I stand by my personal motto. No regrets, not even one letter.
Thank you, Your Majesty, for that introduction. I'm sure we can't find any fault in someone who has such tremendous partying techniques, or did an advisor gone awry? Who knows? Next, we'd like to have the cousin of our Queen Esther, Mr. Mordecai. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Mordecai the Benjaminite, and I refuse to bow down to that megalomaniac named Haman. A Jew bows down to no one but God Almighty. Knowing that the Jewish men, women, and children of Persia are safe now gives me solace. Looks like I'm gonna be pretty busy now with my new role as advisor to the king.
Busy indeed. Not sure. You were never known as a fan, but you're now in a good position, so maybe not. Next, I'd like to invite the royal jeweler, Parmida. So please come introduce yourself.
Do you know who my great-grandfather was? I am the royal jeweler. Not only do I create the finest crowns for kings and queens, I make some very sweet rings. Strawberry. I take great pride in all my crafts, but what I really take pride in is my lineage.
One with that much pride, you never know. Now, the deceased's dear wife, Zeresh. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Zeresh, the weeping widow of Haman the Agagite. I warned him that he would not succeed against Mordecai the Jew, but he always had a stubborn streak. Do you know how high was the gallows he built for Mordecai? 50 cubits. That's 75 feet. He always was one for drama.
Seems so genuine, though we always suspect the wife. Again, I am this case is seeming muddier and muddier to me. I'd like to invite back from banishment the king's first wife, Queen Vashti. Please introduce yourself.
Well. Yes, I am Vashti. That's Persian for the most excellent of women. I come from a line of noble kings and landed here as the first wife of King Ahasuerus, king of fools, is foolish enough to send me away. You may have heard rumors about me. They're all true. One night he had a drunken party. The king summoned me saying, "Come on, Vashti. All you need to wear is your crown." I refused, and you know the rest. I may have been banished from the palace, but I left with my head held high. Next.
Interesting. Seems like you could be someone to do this, and yet you also seem like someone who wouldn't shy away from telling us, so I don't know. Your final potential suspect this evening is the queen herself, Queen Esther. Please introduce yourself. Please unmute to introduce yourself.
Technology, not my thing. I have people for that. You may call me Queen Esther, but I am also known as Hadassah, meaning myrtle, a symbol of hope. I was adopted by my wise, pious, and loyal cousin Mordecai. I may have once been modest and shy, but I have found my courage and my voice. I am certain that Haman met the end he deserved.
I am so completely confused. I don't know who of these 7 could possibly have done it. And so I'm going to invite to join us for this evening's discussion and learning and quest and to solve this mystery, our detective. This is the detective who solved such infamous cases as the mystery of the Hound of Babylon and the murder on the Persian Express. He's the master of palace intrigue, of the Megillah's Megillah. His arguments are so convincing, he will not allow for a hung jury. Please wave and say hello, Mr. Inspector Sasso of Shushan.
Good evening, everybody. I am Inspector Sasso of Shushan. I am a graduate of the School of Detectives of Megillah University. I have done a little bit of preliminary investigation before we begin the questioning this evening. I actually began by going to the palace. And lo and behold, I discovered that somebody had stolen all the toilets. So I have nothing to go on.
You may not, and yet our friend Demeritus will be joining us, and he will occasionally be interrupting me to bring us some new information that should help you guiding your questions throughout our evening. And so I will ask him to join us once again and share our first piece of evidence.
While exploring the palace grounds, my investigation turned up a curious Hebrew poem entitled Shoshanat Yaakov. Seems as though someone among us fancies themselves a poet. Cursed be Haman, who sought to destroy me. Blessed be Mordecai the Jew. Cursed be Zeresh, the wife of Haman, who terrified me. Blessed be Esther, who interceded on my behalf. Cursed be all the wicked, blessed be all the righteous, and may Harbonah also be remembered for good. This verse points our investigation in several directions. Embedded in the poem are some clues pointing us in the direction of the hangman. Could it be a thank you note? Who was protecting whom? Did the king protect Esther, or did Esther protect the king? Did Mordecai protect the queen, or did the queen protect Mordecai? And why is Harbonah, who is barely mentioned in the Megillah, singled out in the last line of this poem? Or was this poem planted to throw our investigation off track, and the real hangman is really one of you who goes unnamed by the poet? I'm going to look for more evidence while you ask one another a few more questions.
We'll work with our friend Emeritus on his pronunciation of Megillah at a later date. And so this evening, I've gotten a bit of evidence about this document, this poem, which names some of our suspects. I also feel like I heard earlier when the cantor was sharing the full story, she mentioned something about a ring. I'm sure that might fit in at some point. Inspector, would you please help us and go ahead and ask these fine folks whatever you think you need to hear from them right now.
Yeah. Before I begin the questioning, I also wanted to mention that in my preliminary investigations, I decided I would go to a bris. I thought I might get a tip-off. Let's see what the answers might be. So I'll begin with Mordecai. Mordecai, you mentioned you now have a new role to play in the king's court. Is that the role of hangman?
Absolutely not. I'm the newly appointed vizier and advisor to the king. How dare you accuse me of such a thing? Sure, I was Haman's nemesis. Everyone in Shushan knows that. But that does not mean I was the executioner. Now, why would you go and do a thing like that?
Well, we'll look at that. Parmita, you sounded pretty upset about Haman and that signet ring. Were you mad enough to pose as the hangman?
Well, first, I'm the great-granddaughter of King Cyrus the Great. Cyrus was a generous and compassionate king. When he took power over Babylonia, he gave permission to the Jews to return to the land of Israel. Not only that, King Cyrus gave them funds to rebuild the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. And as the royal jeweler, I have great disdain for how Haman misused and disrespected that beautiful, beautiful ring that I created. How dare he?
Don't take it personally. It's my job. Vashti, you were banished from the palace. I thought you were banished from Shushan and all of Persia. But here you are. Have you been hiding all this time?
Of course I've been in hiding. I was banished. And we all know that the king has spies everywhere. Since leaving the palace, I've joined the underground resistance movement here in Persia. Without the luxuries of royalty, my eyes have been truly opened. I would say it is time for a change. I call for an end to tyranny and corruption.
I see. So Esther, beloved queen, I think it's time to confess. Were you mentioned in Haman's will? Huh. I looked at the will because, it's a dead giveaway. In any case, couldn't find anything there. But Haman knew a secret about you, didn't he?
I mean, it's true. When Haman threatened my people, I fasted for 3 days. I mean, that is hard to do. Has anyone even tried that? And prayed that the Jews of Persia would be spared. Not even the king knew my secret identity. But Haman noticed the messenger had tasks going back and forth between my royal chambers and Mordecai at the palace gate. He's always there, by the way. Haman was growing suspicious, and I suspected he knew that I am myself a Jew.
So, Mr. King Ahasuerus, that was a pretty awful decree you let slip by. How did that happen? Did you pay attention to the affairs of your kingdom?
Oh, my dear inspector, surely you know that Haman was my most trusted advisor, the viceroy of Persia. I had no reason to distrust him. I'm a very busy man, the best. I can't be responsible for every single edict or executive order that goes out under my seal. Who has time for reading the fine print when there are fine wines to taste and fine,
The best. So, a widow, Zeresh, you're specifically mentioned in this poem that was read earlier. What do you have to say for yourself?
Don't believe everything you hear, sweetie. If I had a dime for every time my name appeared in a Persian rag, I'd be a very rich woman. Oh, wait, I am a very rich woman. So I may have suggested Haman blow off some steam to Mordecai's direction, but I never imagined it would end like this. Haman made his own bed. Now he's going to have to lie in it forever. May he rest in peace.
Didn't realize you were so wealthy. I'm on the board of the rectors of a congregation in Indianapolis. If you make a nice contribution, we can call it Beth-El Zeresh. Harbona, go ahead and spill the beans now. Tell us about the history between you and Haman. I hear his nickname for you was Donkey Driver.
Of course. Last but not least, always, Harbona. Well, I have to tell you, a long time ago, I was actually a Confederate of Haman, believe it or not. Eventually, though, I realized he was up to no good and doomed for failure. I abandoned him. I cut him out, snipped him off right out of my life. Not many people know this part of my story, though, and I wonder who that poet was.
We've heard a lot.
Are you allowed to fly that Confederate flag?
I keep my freak flag down.
Okay, I'm going to take all this evidence into consideration and get back to you guys in a while. I need
Heard
to.
a lot of answers so far. We've heard a bit from each of our suspects. I'm hoping that Demeritus will come to me with a little more evidence soon. But for now, dear viewers, if you haven't been paying attention to the chat, you can see there's more information from our suspects there as they converse with one another. But I'd also love to hear from you. So far, who do you think hanged Haman? I said Haman, I had to drink. Pretty suspicious. Lots of back and forth and intrigue. And here we have new evidence. Here comes Demeritus now with more evidence for us.
I've learned some interesting facts in my search for truth. According to the royal edict, sealed by the king's signet ring, everyone was ordered to bow down before Haman. But the word on the streets of Shushan is that one of you persistently refused, Mordecai the Benjaminite. Haman was enraged by Mordecai's defiance. He plotted to take revenge against the entire Jewish population of Persia. Haman cast lots, Purim, to identify the fateful day of genocide and destruction. The 13th day of Adar was cast. Then Haman approached the king and told him about a certain people that are scattered throughout and dispersed among all the provinces in your realm. He explained that their laws are different and they do not observe the king's laws, and suggested that Ahasuerus should not tolerate them. In a moment of weakness, or drunkenness, King Ahasuerus fell for Haman's hateful plot. Ahasuerus foolishly removed and entrusted his signet ring to Haman. We see it here as evidence. Haman sealed the edict with this very signet ring. That much we know, but since his death, the ring has gone missing. Any one of you could have a motive for taking it. Everyone throughout the kingdom knows that an edict sealed by this ring is irrevocable. That's some powerful ring, huh? I better get back to my investigation. You should continue interrogating one another. I'll report back soon.
Well, the plot is thickening.
This ring sounds pretty important. Inspector, please.
Yes. I think that this signet ring adds an important component. Hey, Mordecai, have you seen the signet ring?
I have the ring. It was given to me by the king, and he trusts me to use it wisely. He trusts me to do a lot of things for him, but no, he did not ask me to be the hangman.
So, Parmita, you created the signet ring as a private memorial to your great-grandfather. I heard that you secretly incorporated symbols into the ring to honor him. Is that so?
It is. I told you, my legacy is what's most important to me. And I would have loved to pull that lever myself. Does my admission of anger make me guilty? No.
I think you're the ringleader here. Vashti, you say you're more resilient. Could you care to explain that?
Banishment is not for the weak of will. I may have taken palace life for granted once upon a time, but since being in exile, I've learned the secrets of survival. I found comrades and friends like Tiridata in the underground resistance. You know who you are.
My king, I think that you are smarter than you let on. You knew what you were doing when you gave Haman the signet ring, didn't you?
Inspector, I needed to know if Haman was undermining my authority. Giving him the ring for a day was a mere test. Oh, and Haman failed miserably. I thought to myself, how much damage could he do in one day? I never underestimate the power of the signet ring, but I did underestimate the depth of Haman's drive for destruction.
So Zeresh, earlier you said that you warned Haman that his gallows was too noticeable. I heard that this thing was your idea in the first place. Is that so?
Let it be known that the 10,000 talents of silver came from my family estate. So if you don't mind, King Ahasuerus, I'd like that back. That payment was for a very specific purpose, for Mordecai's end. I shouldn't have to pay for my own husband's gallows. My mother was right. What a disappointment he turned out to be. So what do you say, Ahasuerus? Maybe you could break the 10,000 up into installments?
Well, where there's a will, there's a giveaway. Harbona, it's time to spill the truth. What really happened between you and Haman?
A lot of stuff happened between Haman and I. I will definitely say that. But Inspector, if that's your real name, I want to go back to those donkey driver comments, to be honest. Harbona means donkey driver, and it never bothered me, really, at all. I'm not that testy of a person.
A donkey driver, huh? Okay.
Inspector, I'm not sure we got to hear from our Queen Esther this round.
I didn't see her listed for I did. We do have Queen Esther here. I left my notes.
I mean, you know, why?
She'll just slip by if we don't ask her questions. She might slip by as the guilty party, and we would not want to deprive.
It's because we were so focused on the signet ring that I did not pay attention to the singit ring. So let's see, Queen, how did it feel to reveal the truth about Haman to King Ahasuerus?
So to approach the king without invitation is against the law. I risked my neck. Look at this neck. See it? It's gorgeous. I risked my neck going to him unannounced, but Haman's wicked scheme had to be stopped. I admit, I was relieved when the truth came out about Haman's evil plan, and I don't mourn that he's gone from this world. Zeresh.
I think that concludes this sequence of investigations. I have a question for all of you. Is Haman's body still lying somewhere? Or is this something that remains to be seen?
Our inspector, a wise inspector, always with the right questions and with the best puns. Makes for good entertainment. I am hearing we have one more set of evidence from our Demeritus, around 3 of evidence that should help us figure out a bit more of what has been going on in this tumultuous time. And so I bring one more bit of evidence from him.
Well, this case seems as good as closed. I have just discovered one final piece of evidence which has turned this whole investigation upside down and cracked it wide open. I found this mask floating in the grand fountain just outside the palace gates. It seems that the hangman discarded the mask in a hurry. Who was in the right place at the right time? We know that Queen Esther and King Ahasuerus enjoy a stroll around the fountain when the moon is nearly full, as it is now, a bystander told me that Zeresh and Harbonah were spotted separately by the gates today, placing them at the scene. Hatash, chief of the royal guard, should have seen something. He's supposed to be on the watch. I think it's time the hangman come forward and reveal him or herself. No? Well, then we'll have to do this the hard way. I swear by Sparta's shield, the truth will be revealed. But before I name who acted as the masked hangman, I'd like to hear from each of you one last time.
One last round of questions. Let's do the round 3 of questions, see if this can be clarified a little bit further, and then I will ask our audience, who do you think did this?
So I'm going to start with Mordecai this time because he was spotted in the vicinity of the palace gates today, right near the butcher shop. What were you doing near the butcher shop? A stakeout?
How dare you?
Did
I
you
was with the
toss
children
the hangman's mask in the fountain?
How dare you? I was with the children today in the synagogue. Queen Esther called all of the Jews of Persia to a 3-day fast, and I was leading the school children in prayer, asking for God's protection. There's nothing more powerful than the prayer of a child. Then I left the synagogue and came straight here.
You have touched my soul. I believe in the power of prayer of children especially. So Parmita, you have a strong motive to want to get rid of Haman yourself. Can you give me one good reason that I should not have you as my prime suspect?
Well, I created the signet ring as a private memorial to my great-grandfather. If you look carefully, you'll see symbols that I incorporated in his honor. Ahasuerus knew how much I loved the ring and all it stands for, so he trusted me to protect it. And I have the only key to the safe.
That can be pretty incriminating. Vashti, you've been hiding. Have you been wearing that mask? A mask like that? Maybe that's why we haven't spotted you until now.
King Ahasuerus wanted all eyes on me as if I were a trophy wife. Then Haman wanted to erase me altogether as if I were invisible. That's all changed now. I get to choose when I'm seen and when I'm hidden, when I'm heard and when I'm silent. Now I live in the shadows and can hide in plain sight. No mask needed.
Queen Esther, did you take a walk by the fountain today?
I needed some air. Hot in Shushan, really hot. 127 degrees.
Oh.
And 3 days of fasting left me a little weak of body. But I never lost my clear mind for strategy. I would never have discarded the mask in a public place like the fountain. I would have had my maidservant, Adrina, dispose of it for me naturally.
So perhaps King Ahasuerus, you're a busy man. Did you find the time to take a stroll today? Out by the palace gates, perhaps? By the fountain there?
Inspector, I believe it's important for a king to go out and walk among his people from time to time. It's important for a king to see, well, and be seen. Why, yes, in fact, I did leave the palace gates and I passed by the great fountain, but I didn't see anything out of the ordinary, just the common folk and my loyal subjects.
Good cover. Zeresh, you mentioned 10,000 talents of silver earlier. Are you hard up for money? Were you looking for coins in the fountain today?
I may be a widow now, but I'm not penniless. I did stop by the fountain dressed in my black widow's gowns, I went to seek solace and comfort in the beauty and gentle sound of the fountains, but I didn't stay long. I had to get back home to my 10 dear sons who needed my guidance.
Well, Harbona, I guess the last question is for you. You have denied being the hangman, but we know that you spent time near the fountain today. What do you have to say about that?
Look, here's the deal. I'll admit it. It was I who suggested to the king that Haman be hung on the gallows he built for Mordecai. But that doesn't mean I'm the hangman. I buried the hatchet when I broke away from him years ago. I do like masks, though. Luchador, men who wear iron masks. Where can I get one like that in my size?
Thank you all very much for your cooperation. I will take all of this into consideration before I render my verdict. I'm getting tired, so soon I'll be going to bed, which is that I am going undercover.
While Inspector Sasso thinks of who he thinks, Inspector Sasso of Shushan, the great inspector of Murder on the Persian Express, he should be able to solve this for us. But while he thinks on it, before I ask him to render who he thinks did it, we'll ask our viewers to, in the chat, we've seen additional, lots of accusations going back and forth, lots of suspicious places, people with suspicious objects, people with suspicious attachments to signet rings, all kinds of suspicion going on here, hidden, revealed around fountains. We invite our viewers in the chat. Who do you think was our hangman? Was it Mordecai, the new advisor to the king? Was it the king himself? Was it Harbona, the eunuch? Was it Parmida, who made the signet ring? Was it Vashti, the king's first wife? Was it Zeresh, the deceased's wife? Was it the queen herself, Queen Esther? Please help us. You've heard the evidence. You've seen the accusations. Who do you think it was? See a vote for Harbona. Couple of votes for Harbona. This isn't a time to be offering wine. We're trying to determine whether or not you are guilty. It could be anyone, and you're offering wine. That sounds like buying people off. Lots of Harbonas. Parmida. It's true, she could have made the ring all over again, used it. I wasn't even in the game. I was out of town. I have an alibi. As more guesses come in, Inspector, do you have a guess? I will make all of them reveal, and they are sworn to honesty when they do so. But, Inspector, do you have a guess?
I told you I'm undercover as of now. I have exposed the truth. It is for the people to make the judgment.
Our Inspector, passing the buck.
By the way, I didn't get any bucks from Zeresh or anybody else so far.
Just wine and your Crown Royal there.
Okay.
Then I will ask each of our suspects to please reveal the truth of the matter as they saw it. No one seems to suspect our loving cousin and new advisor, Mordecai. Mordecai, would you tell us? Was it you?
I disagreed with every decision Haman made and despised everything he stood for. May his name be blotted out from under heaven, and may we never forget the evil he perpetrated. I will spend the rest of my days righting his wrongs and earning back the trust of the people of Persia. But I was not the hangman.
Mordecai, as trustworthy as he seemed, it is in a year when so much has gone ups and down, and so many things that I thought were true seemed not true. It is helpful to know that Mordecai is as trustworthy as he seems. Your Majesty, King Ahasuerus, would you please tell us, was it you?
Well, you may think I have the power to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. But why? Why would I play the part of the hangman? One of the great perks of being king is that people do things for you. These royal hands of mine have never seen a day of manual labor. And I'm not about to start that now.
Okay. Also true to character. But Vashti, would you tell us your story? You are so often silenced in the Megillah. Let us hear your story.
All right, here's the truth. We've been planning Haman's demise for months. The resistance was ready to strike to root out the corruption of the ruling class just when they least expected it. But someone got to Haman before us. I truly don't care who the hangman is. I'm just really glad the job is done.
Okay. Surprise twist of innocence there. Queen Esther, you have seemed so sweet and innocent and shown us your beautiful neck that had to be protected. Would you reveal? Was it you?
I despised Haman. Yes, but I wasn't the hangman. Haman had to go, but there was no reason for me to be there at the gallows. Such a violent scene is beneath the dignity of the Queen of Persia. If you must know, I was being fitted for a new gown at that time. I'm sure my maidservant, Adrina, will corroborate my story.
We'll have to track her down, check that corroboration. But since you are all sworn to honesty here, we will trust you that it was also not Queen Esther, though she had to hide her Jewishness. She did not hide her trustworthiness. That is as genuine as can be. Then perhaps it was you, Parmita, the jeweler, who made the signet ring. Perhaps you made another.
Well, first of all, I need delicate hands to make all this jewelry. So quite frankly, why would I mess with a gallows? And with all the gold laying around left over, I could have paid somebody else. But here's the thing. In the king's last exchange with Haman, he retrieved the ring. He asked me to polish it because, man, was that guy dirty. And I returned it to the safe. So I was busy when Haman was on the gallows. You can ask the servants. They all saw me in the servants' quarters. They'll corroborate my alibi.
Okay. Arbona looking a little more suspicious, even still. Arbona, please come off of mute and tell us the truth.
I'm going to be honest with you here. As you probably already know, there's a hierarchy in the king's court. When Haman saw that I had the king's ear and, well, never mind, he also saw that I was becoming a trusted advisor and moving up the ranks. Haman threatened me. I admit there was bad blood between us. I admit it was my idea to have him hanged, and I planted that idea with the king. But guess what? I'm not the hangman.
Always finding a way to keep your hands clean. And I'm so sorry, Zeresh. We always suspect the spouse. Zeresh, tell us the truth.
I didn't want Haman dead. I wanted him to succeed. Haman and I were partners in everything. You know what they say about who's behind every great man. My only condition was that he leave our children out of it. I wanted a life of ease for our 10 sons. But with every setback, Haman entangled them further and further into his schemes. I could see he was leading them down a dark path. A mother's task is to protect her children from all harm, even from their own father. So yes, out of love for my children, I wore the mask. In order to protect them, he had to be stopped.
Well, folks, you heard it here first on Shushan, on Access Shushan. It's always the widow, but she had noble reasons to protect her children. So this ends with the reveal of our mystery of who hanged Haman. It was his wife, to protect herself and her 10 beautiful boys.
Zeresh, let me see the wine you're drinking. Could you raise your cup? I can see that that's Gallo wine. Is that your bottle of Gallows wine?
It's almost gone wine.
Zeresh, I always knew that you knew the ropes. You knew the ropes.
How's that Crown Royal going?
I'm also a good lawyer. I will become your lawyer. And we will say that the whole thing was fake news.
L'chaim.
L'chaim, everyone. Purim Sameach. Thank you for joining us, for having fun on our mystery journey. Thank you to all of our participants, our actors, to Dan Resnick for playing Mordechai, to Todd Maurer, our King Achashverosh, to Adam Rothenberg, sorry, our Carbona, George Kelly, our Parmita, the royal jeweler, to Jenny Carmen, our Zeresh, to Maria Simon, Vashti, to our own Cantor Melissa, the Queen Esther, and of course to Rabbi Dennis Sasso, Inspector Sasso of Shushan. Thank you all so much for joining me on screen as our actors as we played through this game. And as always, thank you hugely to Sherry and to Jackie, our behind the scenes running the Zoom. Thanks everybody for participating, for joining in the chat, and for playing along with us. Chag Sameach.
Shoshana Habira. Can we hang around and just chat a little and toast?
You're unmuted.
To Queen Esther.
Spotlight our actors so that we can.
Right.
Okay.
Purim Sameach, everybody.
Purim Sameach.
May we all gather together in person next year.
Amen.
With full costumes on the stage.
Okay, make sure you all go undercover pretty soon.
All right. Okay, bye.
Under the covers.
That's cute.
Very cute.
Good.
Oh, nice.
Did everyone enjoy the Megillah reading?
I
It's
think
funny how he could pronounce Achashverosh, but not Megillah.
Right.
Yeah, so
How many
I was like, I'll have
what
to
do Mexican Jews when they read the Megillah?
all these years. Hi, Lion.
Love seeing all the faces. Good night.
Great. Yeah, good night. Everybody looks great tonight. Awesome. You guys did a great job.
happy faces, happy costumes. Good to see you.
Love it.
Yeah.
Hey, Allie.
Some people out there don't look 21 to me.
I have yeah, and I used to have it up on my wall. It's in one of my boxes somewhere.
Maria and Cantor were hysterical in the chat. That was awesome.
I need to save the chat.
Yeah, it saves. Jackie and I have it.
Okay.
Oh my God, I just asked.
Back with one having to do with there was one that just didn't have the chutzpah to type.
There were several I thought about typing and then erased back out.
Oh, I'm the same way. There were a couple jokes that came into my head. I'm like, I'm down on the crowd right now.
Just couldn't bring myself there. I think my mom and dad are on tonight, so
Oh
yeah.
no!
Oh, I love the mask. Yay!
You can keep up with the chat. I have to read through it again.
I hope that me and Zeresh are still friends after this.
Darish, Darish.
Yes.
I could not have been the hangman because I once tried tying a noose and I never got the hang of it.
Oh.
Oh.
Have to know the ropes.
I was disappointed when I pulled Jenny's name out of the hat for who was going to be guilty. Like, oh, she'll be.
I was excited. I bet. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
You texted me back, woohoo!
Okay, Shabbat Shalom tomorrow night, everybody.
Yep.
Happy Purim, everyone.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Okay, see everybody at Shabbat. Chag Sameach. Good
Chag
night.
Sameach.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.